There we go. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Business. Today I'm joined by the beautiful Pete Colby, the founder of Pragmatism UK. 30 years in the game, 30 years, in HR, and you have done some incredible things. But what I like most about what you do is returning back to the basics, like you just said a second ago, having the simple art of communication, of conversation, right? And not having to go through a certain bureaucracy, certain steps and processes when things can just be handled to make everyone happier. But Pete, I'll give the floor to you so you can give yourself the best intro you can.
Well, I've never heard the words beautiful and Pete Colby used in the same sentence. So thanks for that. I'll take that. Yeah. So if I just introduce myself, yeah, I've been around. I'm almost 40 years in working life. Obviously started as a 5-year-old. But predominantly in HR, but also worked in manufacturing roles as well, where I've managed a lot of people. Worked for some well-known organisations such as British Steel and Rolls-Royce and companies like that. But predominantly, I'm a mediator. Next year is my 30th anniversary of training as a mediator. And I'm a bit of a strange sort of person because I sort of gravitate towards disputes because I love the buzz of two people or however many people being in disputes and just being able to talk, listen to each other, work out their own solutions, and then, do you know what? Just get on with their own lives because life is too short. So my business is called Pragmatism, named because I just don't believe that any policy, law, or process gives you the answer when it comes to people. It's pragmatic decision making. Um, and as a business, we mediate disputes, but the other side of the business prevents those disputes in the first place. So we train mediators, we train managers to have what we tend to call difficult conversations. And they're only difficult because they don't have the confidence. They don't have the confidence because they just don't have the skills and the confidence to have those conversations that at the end of the day are quite simple things to do, but you just need a bit of confidence.
Yeah, agree. People need to feel at ease to share what's on their mind. And a lot of people are too scared to do that, to actually share how they're feeling, which, goes down a rabbit hole. But I'm curious, what drew you into this line of work, into being a mediator and just resolve conflicts?
I was working in British Steel in the 90s, and British Steel, lots of redundancies, closing a lot of sites, really difficult relationships with trade unions, strikes, all good things like that. And I had quite a forward-thinking personnel director at the time who asked me to go on to a mediation training course, and I'd never heard of mediation. Um, and and I went on that, and it just changed my thinking. It just changed how I approached things rather than what they do teach you in HR or personnel as it
Hmm.
was. That if there's a problem, there's a grievance procedure and you go through an investigation and all this lot. Actually, just working together and trying to look at what we call interests rather than positions, it enables you to get to resolutions. And it changed how I dealt with those unions. It dealt with how I made people redundant, which is one of the hardest things that you can do. And that just then flourished into every time there was a bit of a problem, I was gravitating towards them. And my career developed because people knew that I did that, and so where there was a problem that most people will run away from, they used to ask Pete to go and get in the middle of it, and which is I was always happy to do because
Good.
the
Why,
job.
why do you think people did ask you? And why do you think it is now led to you running a business purely on that?
I think it's because of the passion and because of once people start seeing the results, and usually people are shying away from those types of things, but once you can show people how to do that, and once people start to come along with you, it was often in my career when I was in corporate, it was often, well, I want to do it with you, Pete. So you lead the way, and I'm right behind you. But then, they wanted to do it a better way rather than sitting in grievances and making things worse.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm curious for you, like helping people aside, like on a psychological basis for you. Why do you think you have a passion for it? Like where do you think like it actually stems from? Like a childhood relationship, brothers, sisters, friends?
No, I don't. I don't think it's as deep as that. I suppose I've always been the sort of person that is. A lot of people say this, don't they? I like to help people, but I am one of those types of people. I mean, it makes me a bit of a rubbish business owner in many ways because I give too much of my time away and don't charge for it and things. But so I think I've always had that desire to help people, which is probably what drove me into the sort of HR space. But to be honest, I never really enjoyed the HR space because a lot of it is not helping people. A lot of it is actually making it worse for people. Um, but when you can get that job satisfaction of helping people, and which 30 years ago, once I started doing that, it just gave me a buzz. I don't think there's any buzz like it in the work that you do. Two people who are stressed out of their heads, can't sleep, hate each other in the morning, and then by late afternoon are apologising, are catching up on the 2 years that they've missed because they've not spoken to each other, and actually are going to sleep that night and can move on. You don't drive away from that situation wondering what value you've added. Whereas often in corporate life, I used to drive home thinking, I've just had 17 meetings. Um, I've got a bigger to-do list. I've delivered very little.
I know what that feels like. I can tell you, like, I know exactly what that feels like. But there's interesting. So the fact of helping people, gives you a buzz, and I guess, is value, right? You feel valuable in the work that you're doing, valuable for the people that you've actually helped, which that's a huge driving factor. And I'm curious, when you're in those like meeting rooms when two people hate each other and they're just going at it, like how do you kind of keep yourself as the middleman? How do you kind of keep frame, keep perspective when there's a heated dispute happening?
So I think a lot of people think that mediation is, and I see this a lot because I hear people say we tried mediation and it didn't go well. And what they mean is they've had a go at mediation, but they're not a mediator, and they've got a couple of people, angry people in a room. We had a lady on our training who did that, and the result of her mediation was that one threw a chair at the other, that missed, but it hit her in the face and broke her nose. So she got a broken nose, and the employee lost their job.
Holy shit.
But that wasn't mediation. That was somebody trying to mediate.
That's a stress room. That
Yeah.
is.
So a lot. One thing that a lot of people don't know about mediation is certainly workplace mediation is those people won't be in the same room for quite some time.
Okay.
So as a mediator, when I'm mediating a dispute between two people who hate each other, they won't be in the same room to start with. But they'll be having a conversation with each other, but through me as a mediator. So I'll be flicking between those rooms, and I want them to move out of he said, she said, and trying to prove the unprovable from the past into, well, what do they want to happen going forward? And are they able to build that working relationship? And once you can get over the tough bits and they've not been in the same room, but they start talking about what they might want to be different in future, the future's not happened yet. So that is the time where we're probably starting to think about getting in the same room. But usually that's after 3, 4, 5 hours
Wow.
conversations.
Wow, that's a lot. And I guess you kind of answered this question kind of when they start speaking about the future. But I guess for somebody to go into that shift of going, okay, like maybe I'm happy to speak to him. I guess what have you noticed from past experience what causes that shift for them to start being okay, sure, let's go to the other room.
It's listening and understanding other people's perspectives, and actually having the freedom and the knowledge that they only need to understand that perspective. They don't have to agree. a lot of people think that what we're doing in mediation is getting people to agree on something. And that is true when it's talking about the future, because it's not happened yet, so they can agree on how that's going to be. But they'll never agree about what happened in the past. An example I'm always giving is, because it's all about trust and relationships. My wife, Liz, I trust her implicitly. I love her to bits. But she'll still say to me, 2 weeks ago, Pete, you said this. And she's absolutely off her rocker, because there's no way I said that. No way on this earth would I ever say that. Never. The problem is she heard me say it, and she knows that I said it. So if we spend all our time trying to prove whether I did or I didn't, first of all, over time, we'll believe our own versions more and more. But secondly, it's not going to end well in our relationship. She's actually my second wife. I don't really want to have to try and find a third. The important thing is that we sort of say, well, that didn't go well. But actually, if the subject was that important, let's say she thought I said I was paying the mortgage and I thought she was. It's quite important, that. And maybe the answer is, well, let's not try and have that conversation while we're trying to get our daughter ready for school. Maybe in future, when we're deciding who's going to pay the mortgage, we sit down, just us, and we agree it, so that we both know. Not saying you definitely said that, you didn't say that, just move on, because actually we want to build that relationship and we want that to be successful. And that's the key to what we're doing in mediation.
I like that. From what you've just said, the things that I would take away is, number one, a want to, right? No one's not going to do. A want has to be the biggest thing. Environment, I think, is super important, because I've had similar environments. You know, I'll be sort of, I don't have a wife yet, but like with my girlfriend, and they'll be like, okay, we'll just talk about it later, or I don't want to talk about it on the phone. I'd rather talk about it in person, right? I think environment is super important when you want to have a clear-cut conversation, and like understanding these things. It's just the fundamentals.
It is, and to the point that you just said about you and your girlfriend, that me and my wife, Liz, are very different people. If we have a Barney, which we do, I want to have it out now. She wants to go away, reflect, probably call me every name under the sun, calm down, and then have the discussion. Now, if I just pursue her and just keep trying, again, it's not going to end well. So a key, yeah, exactly. A key part of the whole thing in workplaces is people don't get to know each other. People don't know their different traits, and that's often what we're looking at in mediation, because people start a job and they're like, right, I'm Pete, I'm HR director or whatever. I'm Josh, I'm sales director. Let's talk about HR and sales. And that's the relationship that they build. They don't start talking about themselves and what they, the way they are, get to know each other, get to know your backgrounds. So a lot of what we're doing in resolving disputes is going right back to basics. Because you'd be amazed how many, those two people who hate each other, once they find out something like they've both got a cockapoo, suddenly they're not as bad a person. Or
Suddenly they're on dog walks getting coffee together next Sunday.
yeah. Or they support the same football team, or they know the same people, or they work together. Suddenly they can have a conversation about that, and they're not as bad a person as they thought they were. And so there's a lot of very basic things that really do solve really big disputes.
Comes back to NLP, right? When someone has these similar traits as you, it's all mirroring, like, oh, we could actually be friends, right? And that's, humans are very simple. If we took all the fluff away from it, right, we're very simple machines. But people get too caught up with it. I'm curious, when you founded the business, was there like a core problem or a core couple problems you're like, okay, this is the reason I'm launching this to solve that?
I think the thing that made me decide to do what I do is, I suppose they always say, gap in the market. I always knew in corporate, I was reasonably successful in my corporate career because I could do what I do, and it's a relatively rare thing for some reason. And I just thought, a lot of my frustration in corporate was we could make massive change, but bureaucracy and what should take a day takes 2 years, sort of thing. So it was really about the combination of those two things. We need this across organisations, and can do this, and I can build a team around me that can do this. So I have this, you know, if I'm going to have a bit of a legacy, it would be to have resolved a lot of disputes and avoided a lot of tribunals. So it was almost that targeted thing about making a difference. And it sounds a bit glib, doesn't it? Changing people's lives and things. But, you know, I've
I
had
mean,
people.
hey, if you're changing lives, you're changing lives, own it.
Yeah, and I've had people sat in front of me confidentially telling me how they've tried to take their own life because of issues at work. And, we all have issues at home. But I always say if your life's crap at home and your life's crap at work, it means your life's crap. And there's everything we can do about life at work.
Yeah, you can really turn it around. What do you see like, or I guess what do you do the most? Like, is there certain conflicts, certain, I guess, procedures that cause conflicts?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, since COVID, that's quite the whole flexible working and remote working.
The hybrid lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, organisation saying, right, you've all got to come into the office now, or you've all got to do 2 days in the office, or sort of blanket policies when we're all different and people are different. So that's a bit of a root cause. I think as legislation tightens up and people get much more risk averse and people get more aware of legislation, which is going to tighten up through Labour anyway. Lots of bullying. The word is used a lot more, I find. It's a strong word and it covers a lot of things. And, there's bullying and then there's, I don't like my performance rating, so I'm being bullied. And, I'm not there to judge whether that is bullying or not, but it's really about contextualising what those things are.
And some people, everyone's different, right? Something that I could say to somebody, someone could cry about it and have the worst day ever. Someone else could laugh, right? So you got to be careful. The remote part's interesting. Has that kind of changed how conflicts are handled? I guess is it a new approach? Like, let's say people messaging each other on Teams, or like there's a group chat with somebody, somebody's not involved. Is that a different approach that you have to take to it when it's more remote or hybrid?
I think there's not a different approach as regards how we resolve the disputes, and most mediations are actually better face to face because talking is better face
Oh
to
yeah,
face.
definitely.
But actually, sometimes it's better on a virtual platform like this, especially where that working relationship is remote. Because then, as a mediator, you're actually going into the workplace. So if this was a mediation now with us and we worked purely remotely, we'd be in the workplace. And so actually, a lot of the little nuances that happen are about how people are on camera. Cameras, switching cameras off, or being distracted by the dog, or whatever it is. So there is a changed dynamic, but I just think the whole remote working thing has just created so many. I was never too worried after COVID and remote working and things about the lack of disputes that are going to happen.
Yeah, because the less people are together. Well, actually, I don't know, to be honest. Is there more disputes now that people work remotely, or is there less disputes?
I think it's just a different dynamic. I would say more generally because more remote means more written words, and more written words means more misunderstood words. Because as you rightly say, you can say the same thing to one person and there's a different reaction, but you can certainly read words very, very differently.
Yeah.
The tone's not there, the intent's not there. So yeah, I think it's changed the dynamic, I would say, as disputes have increased, but
Yeah, definitely.
there's so many different factors.
Definitely, I would agree. Messaging is my least favorite form of contact. I absolutely hate it because you read something wrong. Like somebody could say okay. You could read that five different ways, right? Like okay, like why are they being blunt? Or okay, like it's so bad. And I like to call them keyboard warriors. That's what I like to call everyone that likes to talk over text.
There's loads of keyboard warriors, but just to give you a real example of
Oh yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
a few words, I did a mediation a few years ago between two senior managers, and they they used to do a lot of reading, and they used to swap books and everything like that. And one lunchtime, one of them left a leadership book on the other one's desk with a post-it note saying, "I think you should read this."
Okay.
And the other person was on lunch and came back, but whatever happened at lunch, he didn't have a good lunch. He wasn't in a good mood. And he read that post-it note, "I think you should read this, leadership."
Ah,
So he got on his keyboard and he said, "Who the F do you think you are? You think you're the best leader in the world, and don't patronize me like that." So he left, and then he got the email, so he got as much of a rocket back. And that then, over 18 months, then culminated in grievances, one of them off with work-related stress, one had breakdown, etc. And it was 18 months later that I was in the mediation, and they were having a conversation about the intent of that post-it note, which was, "You were my mate, it was a brilliant book, and I really wanted you to read it." Well, I took it as a real
kick in the
slight on
teeth.
my leadership capability.
Yeah.
And, one of the most emotional mediations ever, because two men, when they are hugging and crying and apologize, it's very, very sad, but a very serious mental breakdown. He had other things on in his life as well. But, really, really over a few words on a post-it note. And it's just
Crazy.
like, it's incredible.
Yeah. And the fact that it went on for 18 months, right?
Yeah,
When realistically, after the post-it note could have been done, he could have gone in like, what did you mean by this?
yeah,
From
exactly.
post, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And is understandable. I feel like people get caught up in their own world way too much. Way
Mm.
too much. There's you and there's this voice, and then you just get stuck in it. And then obviously one thing leads to another. You mentioned grievance procedures, right? By that reaction, how like does that procedure make conflicts worse? Does it make it easier? Like, what's your thoughts on that process?
Completely worse. If you looked at my LinkedIn profile, it says that I'm allergic to grievances. And they are so, they're the worst thing, one of the worst things that we have in our procedures in organizations, but they are a thing that we have to have. It's a bit of a strange thing because you've got to have the right to raise a grievance. But this is where I'm often challenging the HR function, because what we do is that's what we teach HR people, that's what we teach managers. If somebody's got a grievance, you need to go through the grievance procedure, which is true, but the first step says we will do everything we can to solve this informally. And what that usually looks like in an organisation, if you've got a grievance and you come to me and I'm working in HR and say, "Oh, it says here we should try and sort it informally. Do you want to do that?" And you will say, "No, I want a grievance. I want a formal grievance." Okay, and we're going to a formal grievance. And once you're at that stage, it makes it so much worse. If you imagine if you've got a grievance against somebody and you're going to put a written statement down, it's not going to be that balanced a statement, is it? It's going to be everything you can think of since 1976 that you can think was bad about that person. Not 1976 at your age, but you know what I mean. And when they read that and they do their statement back, it's going to be just as bad, if not worse. And so it's this, and it's then all investigated, and it's
Hmm.
back to the me and my wife example. Did you say this, Pete? No, I didn't. Etc. And it will conclude that there's insufficient evidence to prove whatever it is. But what that means is during that whole process, which is often months, that relationship has gone, and they really, really don't like each other. And then there'll be an appeal, and then there'll be a counter grievance, because what you've just put me through, being accused of whatever you've accused of me of, I'm now going to go at you. And then after all that, they'll then come to us and say, "I don't know what else to do. It's really bad. Let's try mediation." Do that at the start, get people to have the conversations first,
Yeah.
save all those months of.
Yeah. I mean, Pete, I'm not in your industry like at all. And like, what? Like, that honestly, like that sounds ridiculous. Like, what is even the point of going through that entire process when you can just handle it in one conversation.
Well, what makes it worse as well is, I mean, if they come to mediation, then they get it sorted usually. We run at about 97% resolution, but often they don't. And then they go to employment tribunals. And, the employment tribunal system is, some need to be there, some cases need to be there. But at the minute, we've got a backlog of 50,000 cases in the UK. At the moment, if you take somebody to tribunal, you're looking at. We've just had a case where they've registered a tribunal. It's in 3 years' time.
3 years' time.
Yeah. So having been through whatever you've been through for the last year or two,
Yeah.
tribunal, right? You'll get your case registered in 3 years. So, but the really sad thing is, most of those cases shouldn't be anywhere near that. If they'd have had those conversations, they'll sort it. We did a mediation just last week. That's the tribunal was in 2 years' time, been going on for 2 or 3 years. The mediation took 7 hours, and it was sorted.
And like, what's the biggest challenge in like showing companies, I guess, convincing companies that their process is just a pile of garbage, and that if they just did it your way, it could be handled a lot easier and a lot quicker?
I think our biggest challenge is education. So when I trained as a mediator in 1996, I'm going to ask you what year you were born.
I'm not going to tell you.
So
I was born in 2003, surprisingly.
Yeah, so 7 years before you were born, when I trained as a mediator.
Before I existed.
My mediation wasn't that well known.
Okay.
But I don't think it's that much more well known now. We need to educate more, and we need to educate HR. Some employment lawyers are now really, they're starting to train as mediators, and the really good employment lawyers will advocate mediation because they want their clients to get a resolution as quickly as possible. So there is a little bit of a shift, but 30 years on, it's not that much more well known. I've actually submitted a petition to the government, which is not getting a lot of traction, disappointingly, but to actually implement mediation into the tribunal whole process, because it's...
Share the link to this. I'll put this on my LinkedIn. Share the link to this. I like this.
All right, will do, yeah. Thanks. But it's, yeah, we're us as taxpayers are paying for all those tribunals. And I've recently challenged the government minister, Minister Madders, about this, because his answer is to recruit more judges for all the tribunals. And what I said to him was, that's like saying to a manufacturing company who's got a big waste problem, you just need to buy more bins. And what you need to do is stop the waste in the first place. And it's, for me, it's a no-brainer. For me, it's probably one of the biggest productivity improvements we could make in UK industry.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. What misconceptions do you think it is that these companies have then, that they would rather go through, I'm not in the industry, so I'll say this, their shitty and slow process rather than going through, you guys, and just making it so much easier?
I think it's education. I think it is because and I talked to the CIPD, who are the HR professional body in this. We teach HR people grievance procedures. We take legal advice that is all about adversarial, just in case you're in a... It's so ironic, because most things people do are just in case they're in a tribunal, and it's taking that approach that makes them get to a tribunal rather than just having the conversation. If you worked for me and you weren't performing, or I had issues or whatever, we'd just be having conversations. What do you need to do to help? What do I do? What do you need to do? How can we get there together, etc., etc., etc. And if it didn't work out, we'd be having a conversation that says, don't think it's working out.
Yeah.
What do we both want to do?
Yeah. We can either do this or we can do this.
Yeah.
Which one's the best one?
Well, that's not what we teach people. We say if they're not performing, put them on a formal improvement plan, which is just a path towards dismissal. And let's lay a path of a perceived path of fairness, so that when we sack you, and we're in a tribunal, we can make, we gave you a month to do this, and we gave you a month to do that. No real conversations.
Yeah. It's crazy because I know all about performance plans. I've even put people on performance plans. But hey, I was in the system. It was the process. But
But
I
when
agree.
you,
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, that's what it would have been. It's like, put them on a performance plan because you probably want to get rid of them. So let's
Yeah.
try and see
Yeah.
what happens
You,
fair.
yeah, you are kind of right because when you're looking at it from a leadership perspective, someone's not performing. Oh, I'm going to put you on a performance plan because I know you probably won't perform to it anyway. So that means we can get rid of you in about 3 months because it won't. We gave you a chance,
Yeah, or
and
hopefully they
that's
resign or something before then. So.
yeah, and that's sad, really, if you look at it like that. And to be honest, like you've even changed my perspective on that because I didn't have that thought process on performance plan beforehand, but
Mm.
I really do see it because it is just a one-way track to dismissal essentially if someone's already got stuff going on within their life. Right.
Yeah.
And you said education. Like these companies, these leaders need to be educated. Like what specifically? Like if you had a magic wand, let's say you could put the education in front of them. Like what part?
Yeah, and I don't mean it in a detrimental way, by the way. I don't mean they're uneducated. It's you don't know things you don't know, do you? But it would be that we see a lot of we see a lot. The two sides of my business, resolving disputes and training people. We see a lot of the training comes from resolving the disputes, because people are. The case we had last week, the tribunal one. The client could not believe that going into a case in a morning, and then by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the whole tribunal's been taken out and it's all resolved. They were just like, wow, a really experienced HR person. Wow, I didn't know you could do that.
What?
Well, because they don't
Wow.
know this stuff. They then show interest in. Do you know what? I want to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So it really is just showing how it can be done, and sort of snowballing the whole education thing. As I say, I don't mean it disparagingly when I say people aren't educated in this. It's not their fault. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. No. It is. I think that's exactly what it should be like. You do something really cool. I really like what you do, and I agree with you, which is I think super important as well.
Phil, that's good. But you'll never meet. I don't think I'll ever meet anybody who doesn't
Yeah.
agree that that's a better way to do it. Because if you were
Yeah.
the employee, you'd rather have a honest conversation than.
Completely. And in my opinion, because obviously I don't know this well, it's mind blowing that like there's so many companies out there would rather go through all these processes, all this conflict, all these procedures when it can be done easier. And I think you've got a good mission. To change that for the workforce in the UK would be huge. It would solve so many problems. It would probably make work a bit better because people will be actually trained on how to communicate with each other, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just, oh, you said this, I'm going to go for a walk, smoke a cigarette, and be in a strop when I come back. Because I've been there, right? I say that from experience because I've been there. I guess let's say for the business. One question: how long has the business been running? First of all, how far in are you?
So we're just less than 7 years in.
Just less than 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
nice. Let me ask then, for I guess the 15-year mark, right? At that point, where would you want the business to be? Would you want to be like working with government to actively get it changed, or what's the vision?
I think yes, the vision is to grow the whole mediation side of things, and to show that this works, and to develop the business as we are trainers that actually do this. But yeah, to really be involved with government, ACAS, a lot of the governing bodies that really have the influence around this, and to be able to look back and say, we played that small part. I call it the revolution to resolution, because we really need to take. I would like to look back at year 15 and say we changed things towards more of a resolution approach than a traditional grievance approach.
And that will leave your mark on the world. Well, more UK, but hopefully maybe the world at one point.
Well, yeah,
When someone takes a baton and casts it to the rest of the world.
yeah, we've had we're called Pragmatism UK, but we've done mediations outside the UK, and
All right.
we've had we've had people come on the training from Holland, and we beat our record a couple of months ago because we had somebody come from Sydney, Australia. So that was
There's no beating that record. Question, curious now that you've mentioned that, from working with different countries, different regions, have you noticed like any core differences between, let's say, like Australia to the UK, or let's say UK to Holland, like down to the people?
I think the main differences I would say I've seen, countries like Australia are very similar. They're more forward thinking in some ways, certainly from psychological safety type things. But I think there's some real differences in countries like America to the UK, and that's very much driven by legislation. And there's a lot of tighter legislation in the UK than there is in the States. It's a lot easier to fire
Yeah.
in the UK. Sorry, in the US. But actually, I do agree with some of the things that Labour are going to bring in on tightening up employment legislation, and that's purely because, for me, I talk about some strange things, but I talk about limbo dancing and pole vaulting, and what I
Right.
mean.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, for me, the law.
This isn't what you do on like a Friday night and Saturday morning, no?
No. I wouldn't try either, because I wouldn't walk for 6 weeks after. But, no, for me, the law is a bar that is just the minimum standard. It's not. That doesn't say world class. The laws don't say, if you do, you've got to do that because that's world class. It's just the minimum standard. So there's loads of organisations that I class as limbo dancers that are just like wallowing in the mud, just trying to get under that bar or get up to that bar if they have to. Whereas for me, if you pole vault over that and you do much better than the legislation needs you to do, you don't need to worry about tribunals and things like that, because you're up there. The bar's down here. And silly examples like there's legislation about disability discrimination and things like that, whereas if somebody's classed as disabled, you have to make reasonable adjustments. And it's almost like you've got to identify whether somebody's disabled or not to determine whether you're going to make these adjustments. Whereas my view is, whether they're disabled or not, if an employee is saying I need a bit of help, just look at it. And if it's going to cost 10 quid, you'll probably be able to do it. If it's going to cost £1 million, you probably can't. It's probably going to be in between that. But just have a conversation and see if you can do it. Don't pigeonhole them as, well, we'll only do that if you're disabled. And the reason I mentioned Labour's because they're going to move things from 2 years unfair dismissal rights to there's talk of day one rights and things like that. But I think that's a good thing, because I see too much limbo dancing that says they've not been employed for 2 years. So because they can't claim unfair dismissal, we'll dismiss them unfairly. That's not the right way to approach things.
So they can't claim it right now?
Yeah, so you've got to be employed unless it's discrimination or anything like that.
Okay.
To claim unfair dismissal, you've got to be employed for 2 years at the moment. Labour will change that.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of guidance given to people about, the first question is, how long have they been employed? Oh, less than 2 years. Oh, well, don't worry, because you can do that. Well, if that was your son, daughter, husband, wife, mum, dad, is that what you'd want their employer to do? So just because the law says you don't have to do that, still treat them like a human.
Yeah. Your analogy makes a lot of sense now. I'm not imagining you doing pole vaulting anymore. So
It's not a good image.
But no, I completely agree. I really like the mission that you're on, Pete. But I've got one final question. This is more for everybody that's watching, right? Because you very well understand the brain, you understand how people operate, right? If there was one principle that you could give to people watching this on how to deal with people, what should it be?
I think it would be try to think about what their interests are rather than the positions that they're taking. And what I mean by interests is not necessarily flower arranging or anything. It might be, but what's important to them in here? Because it might be something that's nothing to do with work or whatever it is. But if you can get to the real interest of two people or however many people, that then gives you the area to brainstorm around potential solutions. Because when somebody, if you take something, I don't know, silly like, well, not silly, simple like flexible working. I want to work part-time or whatever. Often it's, I want to work 4 days a week. No, you can't. Whereas if you can get those people to have conversations about what's important to them, why is that 4-day week important to them? Because that's just one solution that could be one solution of many. And when you start to talk about interest, why it's important to them, what's going off in their life, etc., what's important to the business, what does the business need, and you start to paint that whole picture, there's probably another 50 potential solutions, and you're brainstorming things, and there will be one that will work. But that's because you're looking at interest, not the positions of, I want to do this, no, you can't. So I suppose that's the one thing I would leave you.
That's good. I really like that because it's the part of bringing people together in a sense. It's less of the back and forth. Just we are people at the end of the day. We're animals. We are here to communicate. We're here to be with each other. So why not do it properly?
Yeah, I suppose it's my Spice Girl speech because I'm always saying to people, "What do you want?" And they say, and then I'll be like, "What do you really, really want?" And when you get to the what do you want, what do you really, really want, I wouldn't do the ziggy ziggy bit, but they then start to have a proper conversation.
Yeah, I notice this as well. I do consultancy on the side as well, and I notice this when I ask business owners like for their business, like what do you really want? Like really, really, like actually want? Like if you had a magic wand, like what is it? Oh, it's this. I'm like, there we go,
Yeah,
there we go.
and that gives you something to work with, doesn't it?
Exactly. But Pete, you've been amazing. Thank you very much for being on here today, and yeah, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem.